just being in the vegan space or plant-based space, you're also never vegan enough. But then you're also too vegan for the average person. A lot of trial and error with what I could say and what I couldn't say, and the type of topics that I covered as well. Kind of getting away from, the vegan police and getting hate from them.
We're back with another banging episode of Creator Generation, this week joined by Candice Hutchings, better known on the internet as the Edgy Veg. Candice, so good to have you. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And you're joining us from Canada.
Yes. Which
is, maybe we'll dive into that in a second, but maybe you give us a better introduction than that. Like, who are you? What do you do? You're the Edgy Veg, not just any old one, the one. So
the one and only. I run a variety of vegan food content across a bunch of different platforms. Started on YouTube, so I do vegan cooking shows, testing products, so that the audience doesn't waste their money on crappy vegan food when they don't have to. And then, of course, Instagram, and now on TikTok as well.
There'd be a lot of meat-only eaters who don't like the term vegan, who think it's all crappy food.
Well, you know what? There's good food and there's bad food in all food categories. So I'd say that they're wrong. Vegan food could be very delicious.
I agree.
Well, we do want to cover sort of that vegan journey and talk a bit more about that. But let's start with the YouTube journey. You started on YouTube? How did you get into that?
Well, I started the Edgy Veg as a blog first, and it didn't mean to be a blog. It just kind of started that way. I ended up going vegan back in 2010, and I was teaching myself how to cook because I grew up as a big foodie. I grew up in Europe, lots of cheese, meat, eggs, all that good stuff. And I grew up in a family full of foodies. And so my big thing when I went vegan was the only way I'm going to keep up this lifestyle or diet, whichever one you want to call it, is I have to learn how to veganize my favorite foods, or else I'm going to fail, essentially. So I was teaching myself how to cook. My mom was really interested in the recipes and her girlfriends. And so I found myself emailing them recipes constantly, and it got annoying. So I got a Blogspot back in the day, Blogspot, and put all the recipes up there, and then they could just access it whenever they wanted. Made my life a bit easier, and it kind of took off. And then at the time, I guess it was 2012, YouTube was the big thing that everybody was doing or starting to do. So it was just kind of like a natural progression into that, where, a lot of people were consuming food content. So it's kind of made sense.
And you said you were a big foodie, eating everything, and then you went to veganism. Why did you do that swap?
It started with health issues. I had a lot of migraines, and skin conditions, and I found that I was getting a lot of colds, and I went to go see a doctor, and they thought that we tested a bunch of different things, but mainly came to the conclusion that it was likely a dairy issue. So dairy creates like mucus in the body. So if I was having colds like constantly and migraines constantly. And so I cut out dairy first and felt really good, started to feel better. And then because I was learning or trying to learn how to live a dairy-free life, I kept coming across vegan information. And the more I dug into that, the more it made sense. I grew up mostly vegetarian anyway, growing up with my mom. My dad was not, so we would eat meat when we were with him. My parents are divorced, but with my mom, she was vegetarian. So cutting out meat after cutting out the dairy was really, really easy because my mom had always cooked vegetarian food anyway. And then it just kind of progressed from there.
And how was that initial change? I mean, going from all that stuff to being vegan, did you find it an easy progression, or was it a little challenging?
I mean, back in 2010, it was challenging. We didn't have like all the amazing products that we have now. I couldn't go to the grocery store and find like a vegan butter without even looking for it. Or all the different types of milks that we have now, or all of the ready-to-eat products. They just didn't exist like at all, which is exactly why I started teaching myself how to cook. And using, because raw food was a really big thing back then, and using kind of the techniques that chefs that made raw food would use, but on cooked food that just was vegan. That was kind of the technique that I took.
I wouldn't say briefly dabbled with veganism. I was sort of forced into it a little bit when my daughter was very young. She was allergic to eggs and dairy, which means my wife couldn't have it either. So we got a lot of vegan food. And it was actually a really interesting process, learning and understanding sort of what was out there. And I was actually amazed at the variety of products you could get. I mean,
Yeah.
vegan,
It's
yeah.
amazing going vegan now. Like, I wish that we had all that stuff when I went vegan. The amount of terrible food I ate over like the course of like 3 years. I would say like 2013, 2014 is when I started to go down to the States, and like we would drive over the border to go buy vegan food that was okay, much better than we had here in Canada, and like bring it back over the border just to stock our freezers with. But yeah, it was a lot of trial and error and a lot of cooking everything myself, a lot of not eating out. But luckily, you can do all of those things now, and it's really tasty. So that's nice.
Yeah.
Do you miss? Is there anything that you miss? Any food, the flavor or the experience that you go back and go, like, I'm okay about
Yeah,
it, but I miss it.
yeah. Oh, definitely. Like cheese is a big one. Like
Mm.
traditional, like French cheeses,
Oh yeah.
Italian cheeses, all of that. I mean, you can find substitutes, but I just learned to live without it. And you can find substitutes and they're fine, but they're not 100% the exact same. So I definitely miss that. But I don't really miss anything meat wise. I would say a lot of the meat that you can get as a vegan now is pretty comparable, other than like bacon.
Mm.
um,
That must be challenging as
but
a Canadian. Bacon, maple syrup.
uh,
There's the stereotype.
right. Well, now that
Yeah.
I live in the city and not in the sugar bush, it's a bit easier.
What would you miss, Fred? What would you?
What would I miss? I think I would miss bacon. I think I would miss quite a few different things. Cheese, yeah, that would be one thing I miss. But what I find really interesting though is that there are things that mock trying to be meat that are vegan, but there are also a lot of vegan things I didn't actually realize were vegan, and I was shocked. Like
Yeah.
where I am, the Domino's garlic bread was vegan.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, they make vegan bread, but they'd always been that way. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh. And someone said Oreos are also vegan. Is that right?
Yeah.
Or am I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of food that we call them like accidentally vegan. Oreos
There's a
definitely being
song.
one of them.
Yeah. Actually, no, something else was that Biscoff,
Oh my
that
God.
biscuits. Yeah.
I live off those. They're
Yeah.
I
When I
For
when I
years they were the only thing that I knew that was accidentally vegan. Them and
oh my
Oreos.
gosh,
Yeah.
that was so good. When I discovered that, like I was like so happy because it's such a tasty thing, and I was like,
So
this is
good.
awesome.
Yeah, and I grew up eating that in Europe too. They call it speculus, or in German speculatius. And I didn't even realize until I was on a plane one day and they gave us just the little individual wrapped ones with our tea. And I was reading the ingredients, or my partner was reading the ingredients. And he was like, "Oh my God, we can eat these."
Nice. Yeah, but is there anything else you find that was really shockingly vegan, like you didn't realize it was, and here we are.
Yeah. So a lot of ramen, especially Mr. Noodle brand. So when you get like beef Mr. Noodle or chicken Mr. Noodle, it's all artificial. So it's totally
Stop it.
vegan. Yeah, it's all artificially flavored. And a lot of like chicken bouillon, like the powder or the cubes, is artificially flavored. A lot of it. That
Yeah,
one
actually,
blew my mind.
yeah, I
Well,
saw that on a stock cube the other day. I was using it and it says chicken flavored, no chicken. It's like, oh,
Yep.
this is not real chicken, vegan suitable. I'm like, okay, there you go. Oh.
I was making like a vegan chicken stock for years until I learned that. And I was like, oh my gosh, this entire time I could have just gone to a store and bought it.
well, we've got a thing in Australia, and I don't know if it exists in the world, but it's a thing called chicken salt. It's the best thing ever to put on your chips. I have no idea if this is vegan or not, but I would guarantee there's no chicken in it because it doesn't taste. You get your fish and chips, bit of chicken salt. It's a strange thing.
I have chicken salt.
You have
I
chicken
have
salt?
vegan
Yeah.
chicken.
Is there
I
is
have
there
vegan
chicken in the chicken
chicken salt.
salt? Surely not.
So I've only tried the vegan one, which I have. in my fridge right now or in my pantry right now, but I haven't tried like a non-vegan one. So I don't know. I don't know,
Yeah,
actually. A company sent it to me and they have multiple different like flavors of chicken salt and like a low sodium chicken salt. It's tasty.
you can't
It's
stuff
good
with
on
it.
popcorn.
It's good.
It's going to be like,
Anyway,
it'll be
let's
veganism will be like the mainstream choice in a couple of years, and we'll be all like, remember meat, remember this, remember dairy. I'll be, yeah, yeah. All so long ago.
Hey, just a quick interruption. We have the Creator Generation Discord community, so hit the link, come hang out with us and your fellow creators from all over the world. We'll see you there.
This is a fascinating area. We could be talking about veganism for ages, but let's have a steer back towards the YouTube element. I mean, on YouTube, cooking is a huge category, right? It's immensely popular. It's one of those things that just sort of everyone is sort of interested to some end of the scale. But because it's popular, it is, quite a hard category to get into because there's so many people wanting to get into it. So how did you set yourself apart as a cooking creator?
Well, luckily I had a niche. In this case, like a really hyper-focused niche. It was veganism, not vegetarianism. Now there's a lot of people doing vegan and plant-based cooking, but that was the main one. So I had the niche, which made things a bit easier. It made it easy for people to find me. But then the other thing with being a food creator, you need like really good footage. So I invested in a camera and audio and just made sure that I shot really beautiful food, because if you can put a recipe online, but if there's no photos, chances are no one's going to make it. Or if you take really crappy video of the recipe, you don't get like the salivating, and like people don't want to sit there and watch it or make it. So that was another big thing, was getting the equipment right away as opposed to like slowly building up to that. I just invested in really good equipment right away. And then I also had a bit of an angle as well in the vegan community, because at the time, a lot of it was like raw food or raw till four, like Freely the Banana Girl vibes, or like just very strict, like whole food, plant-based eating. So like making everything from scratch, no oil, no sugar. And I wasn't that. I was veganizing junk food, like fast food, and my favorite like childhood foods and other people's childhood foods. So that also set me apart from all the big salad people that were there.
Nice. And has it been challenging anyway as a creator in a cooking space? Have you faced like all the other challenges creators would face?
Burnout was a big one, especially in the food space, because it's so much work. Everything from like writing recipes, testing recipes, long shoot days. It's one of those niches where like you actually have to really commit to, the work of it, because it's just so many steps. So I definitely, burnout was a big one. I kind of go in and out of that. Like I'll be like, okay, I can do everything, and we're going to put out like 14 pieces of content a week. And then after a couple of months, I'm like, oh, right, we've already done this before. So in terms of like challenges, I would say that's probably the biggest one that I've faced. And then just being in the vegan space or plant-based space, you're also never vegan enough. But then you're also too vegan for the average person. So a lot of, trial and error with what I could say and what I couldn't say, and the type of topics that I covered as well. Kind of getting away from, the vegan police and getting hate from them. That was interesting. That was a fun learning curve.
Who are like every niche has, well, not every niche, but a lot of niches. It seems like they have got like the culture police for X vertical. Like in the vegan, like who are they? Who are the vegan police? Are they?
I would say they're the really extreme vegans. So the people that call like meat eating like the animal holocaust. Those types of people. So for me, I'm never going to be vegan enough for that genre of vegan, because I kind of go by the definition, which is veganism, which is like abstaining from animal or consuming animal products within reason. So like but to them, I shouldn't drive a car. Let's put it that way. I shouldn't like garden because I might kill some bugs. Like it's that type of thing. It's the people that like scream about speciesism. Those types of vegans. I'm sure we've all come across them. But yeah, never vegan enough for them, ever.
The militant vegan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you have that carnivore approved sort of tag, is that something they jump on and like, nope, can't say that? Is that the kind of thing that triggers them?
Well, yes. Yeah. And so the whole point with that was to get in more of an audience that might not be vegan, but is interested in vegan food, or just like wants to cut back some meat, like maybe once or twice a week. Maybe they go meatless or go vegan for a day. I'm very welcoming to that idea in my community, just because I think that every bit of change is change and it helps. A lot of people don't agree with me. They think you should be 100% or nothing. And that doesn't make sense to me in the grand scheme of things and how the world works. So for me, the whole carnivore approved is, yeah, it's vegan food, but if you just like good food, you'll like it. Like, it's not good for vegan food. It's just good food.
Can I ask though, like with some of those recipes you make, I was like, this is like, looks too delicious to be like healthy. People assume like all vegan is healthy, but there are some vegan recipes that are just not healthy.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
They're
Vegan
just,
doesn't equal health. Like at all, by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, Oreos are vegan. They're not a health food. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that is a big mistake that people make, that they just automatically think vegan equals healthy. And I will get comments that are like, I'm so disappointed that there's sugar in this recipe. I thought you said it was vegan. It's like, well, it is vegan. You're looking for someone else's channel, because I use sugar. I use oil. Yeah. Doesn't equal. I use gluten. Yeah. I love gluten. Like, let me keep my gluten. Let me keep my bread, my pasta.
Yeah, because my daughter is allergic to eggs still, and it's sad because when it comes to birthdays, she can't eat cake. And as a 4-year-old, like it's the saddest thing in the world to go to a party and not give a 4-year-old cake.
Right.
But there's a incredibly good vegan bakery where we are. It's called Vegan Yums. If you're in Brisbane,
all right,
check it out. And they make the most insanely good vegan cakes. So good that they outperform any other cake. So whenever we go to a party, people ask us to bring these cakes because they just love them
amazing.
so much. So it's insane. And like I look at it and go, oh, vegan cake, and it is truly delicious. And you just think like, I can't believe how far this has come. This is amazing.
Yeah, we have a place in Toronto as well called Tori's Bake Shop, and anytime I have to bring anything anywhere, if I have a birthday, back when I got married, that was the wedding cake. No one knew it was vegan. And people were like, this is the greatest cake I've ever had in my life. And that's when you get the fun little, oh, well, it's vegan. And that's kind of the point, right? And that's my whole philosophy and why I started the Edgy Veg, was to show that it's just good food. Yeah.
It is. And especially that the fried chicken substitutes, they look pretty darn good with mushrooms and cauliflower and all sorts of
absolutely.
tasty things.
I mean, anything deep fried is going to be delicious, right?
That's true. That's true. Okay.
And
so I keep getting distracted by this. Okay, back to it. Like, let's talk about your community. Yeah. Like you talked about, there are the vegan police out there. Like, let's talk about the good part of your community. What are your fans like?
They're great. They're super supportive. They're the average person, right? They're a combination of people that are already vegan and love to cook, or they're people that are, I call them veg curious, and they're just interested in learning how to cook vegan, or adding, a meatless day to their week, or they have a loved one that's vegan, or a child, or a partner. And that's kind of the community that I fostered now. They're more interested a lot of the time in the food science behind it, more so than the fact that it's vegan. They're kind of enthralled by the fact that I can take like mushrooms and turn it into fried chicken, as opposed to, I don't know, a lot of the other channels that you see out there. So they really like the food science behind it. They like to see a really great transformation. And yeah, they're essentially me, which is nice.
I want to flip gears a little bit, so I don't want to sort of rock the boat, but I will. if I'm allowed to.
The dogs would disagree.
The dog approves. Well, it's in the same vein, like talking around your community, but sort of then shifting gears more into like your content that you make and a bit diving in a bit more into your journey as a creator. Like we met like late last year online. Like I reached out to you out of the blue. And you responded, which was very nice. And because we were running,
I try to.
We still are.
I'm bad at
still
email,
running,
but I try.
Yeah, no. Well, you were brilliant because we still are running a women's creator program in collaboration with YouTube across Canada. And you're obviously a woman creator in Canada, but that wasn't just all. Like what stood out for me when we were, I was scouring the internet for inspiring, interesting women Canadian creators. Geez, how many times have I said that? But you popped out and stood out massively, and I sort of there was this one video that you made about 8-9 months ago that is called "What Happened to the Old Candice," and I was like, okay,
yes.
I'm looking at a vegan cooking channel, but the video that you see straight up, the pinned video, is "What Happened to the Old Candice," and I'm like, oh, well, what is this? And I was like that's when I just went, flagged your name and your channel. It's like, I can't remember what the note was on the spreadsheet. It was like, we, double asterisk, we need this creator to talk to other emerging women creators. And done that in Canada with other amazing creators, and now we can broadcast that further. But instead of me telling that, can you explain what that video is and a bit of the genesis of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So
because it's big.
Yeah, it's I'll kind of start at the beginning. So when my channel really took off, I was working together with my now ex-husband, and then we got divorced and didn't really talk about it at all. It was a whole thing, but I didn't really talk about it. And because I had left that relationship and I was on my own, for the first time, I think in my life, I was able to figure out who Candice was, because I wasn't under the influence or didn't have, a push into either direction from another person that was in my life. And so I changed from, who I was to my audience. And it started to get really obvious that people were noticing this. And I was getting a lot of comments. I was unhappy before, and I was super, super thin. I suffered really bad anxiety, but I masked it all for my YouTube channel and for these videos, and it was all very, very fake. And I was happy for the first time in my life, and I ate food again. Like, not that I was not eating my own food, but with the anxiety, a lot of the time, you have an inability to eat, let's say. And I gained some weight and people talked about it, continuously in the comment section. And I'm still like a straight size, normal size it was just so outlandish to me that this was the thing that people were talking about. And my personality changed and my attitude changed. I stopped being this over-the-top, super bubbly person, because that's what I thought everyone wanted to see on YouTube, and that was the only way I was going to get through this. And people also noticed that. So this whole video was just saying, it was talking about this mask that I had put on to show up for this thing that was my job and to show up for these people. And it wasn't me. And over this journey, I slowly became myself again. So the new Candice is a Candice that makes me happy and hopefully will make them happy. But it's a different person. And just kind of talked about how, people change, and these people grew up with me, and just saying, you don't want anyone in your life to not change. That's a horrible thing, to not change. We really hope that people grow, and become different people and become happy. So the video essentially was just explaining that. And then also, a bit of that was also like, stop commenting on people's bodies in general, like whether someone loses weight, gains weight, dyes their hair a different color, whatever it is. Let's stop making comments on people's bodies, because literally my body is the least interesting thing about me. And so that was really important to me as well. And I think a lot of people were receptive to that. A lot of people actually ended up commenting that there was something off about my old videos, and they could tell that it was a bit of a fake personality. So that was kind of cool, actually. I was a little nervous about the response I was going to get. I invited people to, if they weren't aligned with who I am now, like, and if that makes you upset, like, feel free to unsubscribe. And I don't mean that in like a unsubscribe. I mean, like, if this is no longer a community that serves you, like, then don't be part of the community if it hurts you. We should never be part of a community that hurts us or makes us feel bad. So essentially that was the video in a nutshell.
Amazing.
And what was it like dealing with those comments? Obviously, because I mean, some of them would be very supportive, some would be probably very hurtful.
Mostly it was an outpour of support. I couldn't even really tell you if one stood out that was overly awful. I think most of the community, at least the people that commented, were super supportive. Also said, that they noticed that the channel had changed in a good way. And just, kind of said, like, whatever you decide to do, we'll support you. And like, we also have changed. So that was a really cool conversation to have in the comment section.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting because it's so good to it's so good to hear that there was that support. A lot of creators that we've talked in the past, when they've made changes, they found that sometimes who they thought was the community had a really negative element to it, and they find that extremely hurtful, and it really affected them really badly. But it's really great to hear that there was all that support around it. And it is funny because I actually, before I sort of knew who you were, I was watching your videos, and I'd actually watched your recent videos, and then a couple of your older ones surfaced. And when I first watched them, I was like, oh, this is strange. This is not like the Candice I know. It's like completely different gears. And then I realized, and I watched that changeover video. I'm like, okay, I get it now. But it's interesting because it just seems so much more comfortable in your current videos. Like the personality, and I just like connect with them so quickly in those current videos compared to the other ones, which were just like you're right. It seemed like you were a little bit over the top to give that artificial element you thought people wanted.
Right, and give that like YouTube personality.
Yeah, the YouTube personality, and it's a big thing. We get asked about creators all a lot. Like, should I be a different person for YouTube? And one of the first things we say is like, no, like actually be who you want to be. Like, do that, because if you keep being a fake person, eventually it will just crush you, and it will just lead to misery, really.
Well, and I think a lot of people think that they have to be a different person, or maybe some people do want to be a different person, let's say online, than who they are in real life, because it also creates a difference between like their job and who they are here and then who they actually are. But for me, I couldn't play that role. It just made me really uncomfortable. And it was starting to create a lot of identity crisis scenarios for me, where I just like, I didn't know. Am I like Candice? Am I Candice the Edgy Veg? Like, who am I in my everyday life? And so for me, it was easier just to kind of take my role as the Edgy Veg and just make it as true to myself as possible. And I think people can tell when you are playing a character. I think it's very, very obvious. And for some YouTube channels, that works. But I think for something that is so lifestyle based and in a lot of ways really sensitive topics, like animal ethics it's a sensitive topic. And I think people relate a lot more to the actual person themselves as opposed to a character.
It must have been a bit of a journey for you before you created that video. Obviously there's a bit of a journey, but in terms of creating the content, like you're a vegan, channel, and then you're wading full bore into a completely different topic that's very personal. It's about you, and it's also about the internet and how we engage with the internet, not just on YouTube, but all. Like, how was that process stepping through the door for you to sort of put it all out there, and sort of step out? Your dog loves my voice. It's beautiful.
Yes, she really does.
And like, stepping outside your lane, in air quotes, like into a quite a hot button topic.
Yeah, I mean, it was difficult for me. I had always kept my personal life like very much at arm's length from the internet. I had just seen. I mean, I started in the era of like everybody had a family channel. Everybody was daily vlogging. It was just so intimate, and that I've always been a private person, so that just made me super uncomfortable. So even opening up in the way that I did was really uncomfortable. But then it felt like the right thing to do, and I'm really glad that I did do it. I'm glad that I worked on like getting over how uncomfortable it did make me, because some of the things that I've shared, like not only that, but my struggles with anxiety and mental health, you don't realize how many people need someone else to talk about that stuff in order for them to take action to do something in their own lives. And I think with mental health, at least in the last couple of years, I love that it's such a huge topic, because people feel more comfortable talking about their own struggles and things, and maybe not their own struggles, but like the struggles of a family member, and they don't know how to help them. And so once I started to realize that getting more personal was actually helping people, I definitely stepped outside my comfort zone, and I just felt that it was an important thing to continue to talk about, whether that was mental health, feminism, being in toxic relationships, all that stuff. And so it's made my community a lot nicer as well, because people, I think they have an emotional attachment. It's almost that like parasocial relationship that some people have, but it's made my comment section nicer, I think, because people are also open to sharing.
Yeah, well, you definitely have helped a lot of people just by sharing it, not just in your community, but broader. So contributing to that has been amazing, and it's an interesting thing. Like, do you feel that, like, as consumers of internet content and YouTube videos, until it gets slapped in your face that these are actually human beings and people, like, are we forgetting? Like, what do you think? I mean, maybe we're getting too deep in understanding human psychology here, but what do you think's going on that until you tell them, hey, I'm a person and this is me, you can watch this or not, but like, I'm a human being.
Yeah, it's like, it was bad before, but this is a whole other level of like people forgetting that people that they see online are actual human beings. And I think maybe, especially because of the pandemic, a lot of people like just didn't have that interaction with people outside of the people that maybe are their family, live in their home or whatever it is. So I think that disconnect definitely just like propelled that idea that like, oh, this is my phone or my TV or whatever is not real. Like it's almost like people treat the internet and people that are on the internet almost as if it's a Netflix show and they're not real. And I think that being kind of removed from society for like the year and a half, 2 years that a lot of us were in Canada, it was fully 2 years. I think it's taught people, or people have just forgotten how to socialize properly, and they see a face behind a phone or a camera and they just do not make the connection. And that's sad. And people are mean. I mean, I don't know if you've been in the TikTok comment section, but my God, those people are savage.
Yeah. I mean, look, speaking of Savage, one of the questions, like Ant was talking about the event series we did, and one of the questions we got asked was that, like, what happens if you aren't good looking or you change the way you look? Couldn't you still succeed on YouTube? Do you think that's still a thing?
That you have to be good looking to be on YouTube?
Yeah, or if you change your look, can you still succeed if people are used to something else?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of dealt with that when I dyed my hair and gained weight, and some people hated it and other people didn't. I mean, I think you can definitely still succeed. I think we're a lot more forgiving, and I think our generation specifically is a lot more aware that like people are complex and like looks don't matter as much as like being an awesome person does. I also think we're becoming more aware, like I said, to not comment on people's bodies in general. The whole body neutrality movement is huge. People standing up for like minority groups or people that are disenfranchised. I think we're not really letting it slide as much. Like, even I remember when I first started downloading TikTok or downloaded TikTok, and someone said something really amazing, whether let's use, I don't know, some feminist rant video as an example. And then there'd be someone in the comments saying like, she didn't stutter. And then immediately underneath you see that's a really ableist comment, because, people are not bad people just because they stutter, or they can't not articulate their thoughts properly just because they have a stutter. So having those kind of conversations, I think, has made our generation and the generation below us, like Gen Z, more aware of that. And I hope it's going in a positive direction. It seems that way, at least from like people correcting each other all the time. So yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, if you change your look, you can definitely succeed. You might have people drop off and then gain a new audience, which is not a bad thing all the time. But yeah, I think we have these ebbs and flows in who our audience is anyway, if you've been online long enough.
Definitely. I mean, what scared me? Your dog loves me. Great. What... We'll bond. What like scared me about that question, and like part of it was like, what happens if you aren't good looking? Like, I think it was like, if you're not good looking, can you still succeed on YouTube? And it's like that scared me, in that like there's just like the beautiful thing about the internet and YouTube is like the weird and wonderful people shine, and that's kind of like, like
the weirdos we want. we want to be surrounded by weirdos. It's like, I love weird people. The internet is full of weird, cool, interesting, eccentric people, right? Like, I'd much rather hang out with someone that's a little odd than someone that's really boring.
Exactly. And, like your lens of what's good looking or not is different to the next person, to the next person, to the next person.
Yeah, it's all subjective.
Yeah. And we're like, what we're really, there are a small fraction of people on the internet that make money from their looks on probably on Instagram, maybe TikTok, but like the majority, it's the interesting people creating valuable content for really interesting communities, right? Like your, vegan community, but like, and people who are, I don't know, vegan curious or like dipping their toes in the water, like us, the creator community, who are all the weird, wonderful people. And some of you might make money out of being good looking, and good on you. We don't judge. It's all that's the beautiful melting pot that is the creator generation. Like, you can be you, as long as you're then creating something of interest and value to your people. So like, yeah, you can succeed if you're not traditionally good looking, whatever that might be. It's sort of, it scares me, and I kind of want to beat that out of anyone who thinks that. Like, you do you, and that's probably going to set you up for better success than trying to be someone else, which is exactly what, Candice, you sort of brought to the fore, probably in a better way in your video than I have in that little rant.
Well, I think the whole point there is just that there's room for everyone on the internet. No matter who you are going to find your weird tribe of people, and that's awesome. And so, good looking or not, like you said, it's all subjective, right? Like, someone that I might not find attractive, the person next to me might think they're the hottest person in the world. All of that stuff is subjective, and no matter what you look like or who you are, I think that if you do want to foster a community, those people are going to find you. Like, your people will find you.
Look, speaking of that, I mean, everyone wants to find that tribe and connect with them. What would be your advice to a new creator to any of these platforms? How would you do that? How do you set yourself up to find those people?
I mean, it's such a cliche answer, like, that we kind of always use as like a jump off point, which is, just be yourself, and you'll attract people that are like you. Putting yourself out there, whatever that means and is comfortable for you. And I mean, having people, I found that a lot of the time your community doesn't really engage with each other unless you ask them to. So let's say you're a new creator and you have like 10 followers, get those 10 followers to interact with each other, create like a really cool conversation, and, then the people will come, they'll tell somebody and tell somebody else. And yeah, and collabs are always great for that too. Like, I might have the same type of audience that like another vegan creator has, but they haven't found out about them yet or haven't found out about me yet. And there's obviously going to be a lot of crossover if we are in the same niche, but we're also different people. So then we also have that unique ability and kind of like thing that we bring to the table.
Amazing. Hey,
That is excellent advice, I think. Yeah.
It's a great place to finish, but I don't want to finish there because, well, I like to shift gears. To wrap it, like my favorite, like what I've been thinking about, and it's totally irrelevant. Well, it's relevant, but not very useful, but entertaining maybe. What's your worst favorite vegan stereotype or joke?
The worst vegan stereotype or joke, or my favorite worst vegan stereotype.
Yeah.
Where do we get our protein?
Where do you get your protein?
Like that vegans are frail and don't get protein and pass out all the time, just faint from pure exhaustion because we're living off of lettuce leaves. That's probably the worst one, because if you know anything about nutrition, like even the basics of nutrition, you know that there's tons of protein in plants. That's probably the one that annoys me the most. Like, and it
Fred, have you got
happens
one?
every time.
I honestly, no, I don't. I don't know enough about it to have one, I think. Well, have you got one?
I do. Like it's an oldie but a goodie, and it does ring true a little bit. So sorry, Candice, but you know, it's the old. How do you know if someone's a vegan?
Yep.
They'll tell you.
Yeah.
Don't worry, they'll tell you.
Don't worry, they'll tell you. Exactly. I have known those vegans, and it's stuck with me ever since I met that vegan at university. It was, yeah.
You know what, though? I will say the meat eaters make themselves also very known on my page. Like, how do you know who is following you eats meat? Don't worry, they'll tell you.
Yeah.
They're the ones that
Very
type
true.
bacon on anything that I post, or that's not meat. Call it a mushroom then. You know, those people really calling themselves
That's
out.
amazing. They're there for you.
Yes.
They're there with you. It's
Yeah.
they're
Even
confused.
trolls. I welcome trolls.
Trolls are famous meat eaters. Awesome. All right. On that note, I think wrap it up. But if you've got a good vegan stereotype, I reckon people should flood the comments with that. No, let's not do that. Yeah.
Now I'm curious what kind of answers
Yeah.
you're going
Okay.
to get.
Let's do that. Let's find them. Let's find them. We'll share them with Candice. Candice, the Edgy Veg. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Like, yeah. Not just as a vegan creator, but just as this badass woman who's sharing awesome content and telling it how it is and how it should be. I genuinely, what you've done is in sharing your story is super empowering and very important. So yeah, we're really privileged to have you share it in such candid nature with us. So I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for allowing me to share my story, and hopefully it inspires other women, to make sure that their voice is heard out there on the internet and find their tribe as well.
Generation, look on the mic.